Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of arrowheadaddict.com and showmefootball.com. And today I'm going to be doing a live pregame. It's been a long time. Honestly, I don't remember the last time I did a live pregame show. I don't know how big of a crowd we'll get in here before the game, but I should have Michael Darcy from KC Sports Report joining me here any minute now. I know he's running a little bit late, but he's supposed to be on the pregame show with me. So hopefully he'll be in here soon and I'll add him on and we can talk about the game. And for those of you that are on here, go ahead, leave your comments, leave your questions, because this is a fun little pregame chat that I wanted to do about half an hour out, 45 minutes out from the game. So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a little bit more casual, a little bit more relaxed. So I definitely want to hear from you guys. And, we're just here to chat and chill before the game. Get your drinks out, get your snacks out. Let's pregame a little bit. Let's tailgate from home and let's enjoy this. But yeah, with all that being said, I mean, I am super excited for this game tonight, especially because, this is a big game at the very beginning of the year. Last year, we started to lose ground in the division early because we lost to the Ravens, and then we followed it up by losing to the Chargers, and we didn't look very good. And I think the Chiefs remember that last year, and they remember how, it was kind of a dogfight to get the division back late in the year, and they want to start out fast this time. This is a game that you should win so you can create an early cushion in the division. And looks like Michael is on here, so I'll go ahead and add him to the stream. What's up, Michael? Can you hear me? Looks like he's muted.
Can you hear me right now?
Now I can hear you. Yeah.
Why can't I hear you, Josh? This is a problem. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Just check your settings, Michael, and hopefully he'll be back in a second. But yeah, as I was saying, while we wait for Michael, so last year, we lost ground in the division early because of how bad we were playing. This time we have a chance to create early separation within the division and beat the Chargers at home. And, there's this stat going around, and I saw it earlier today, and I saw it on Twitter, and it was Justin Herbert is 2-0 at Arrowhead, which, okay, first of all, one of those games was a week 17 game in which our scout team was playing. Honestly, that shouldn't even count. And yeah, the stat is annoying because everyone's saying, oh, Justin Herbert's 2-0 at Arrowhead. Well, not really. I mean, yes, but not really. I don't want him coming out of tonight being 3-0 at Arrowhead, though, because that's unacceptable. And I think the Chiefs are the better team. Personally, obviously, I think the Chiefs are the better team. I think most in here would agree. Some of us may be a little bit biased, but I did get into an argument with Chargers fans earlier this week on Twitter too, after their game with the Raiders, and they were making it seem like this game's going to be, they think this game is going to be easier than it is. And I was like, well, I mean, they struggled with the Raiders. I remember Mark Gunnels, who is over at CBS, I want to say, he put out that the Chiefs and Chargers are well ahead of everyone else. And I was like, well, I think you might be underselling the Raiders and giving the Chargers too much credit. And I had Chargers fans reply back to me, and they were like, well, we dominated them. And I was like, you dominated them? Because when I turned on the game, the Raiders had a chance to tie it up with 2 minutes left. So not sure that's exactly dominating. And, they replied back to me and they're like, oh, well, through 3 quarters, we dominated them. Well, guess what? Football is 4 quarters. So you didn't dominate them. I mean, the Raiders almost came back. They almost came back and they almost, tied that game, maybe sent it to overtime. But my point is that, I don't think the Chargers are some juggernaut. And they're a good team. They're a really good team. Justin Herbert, he's a quarterback that can absolutely, he has the capability to steal a game from Arrowhead. But I think the Chiefs are the better team. You have Patrick Mahomes. You have this revamped defense. They're coming off a slaughtering of the Arizona Cardinals. They should win this game. So those are my initial thoughts. Oh, and I was about to add Michael back, and then he left one more time. So, yeah. I guess I'll wait for Michael to pop back in. But yeah, the Chiefs are the better team in my opinion. I really think in something that, I mean, this might be a hot take, but I don't really like Justin Herbert in close games. I think in close games, Justin Herbert is he tends to crumble a little bit. I mean, and I was talking to Connor earlier this week about this game and how he felt about it. And he was talking about how, I mean, like last year, like, and he thinks Justin Herbert's a good quarterback. I think he actually had the Chargers winning tonight. He has the Chiefs and Chargers splitting the season series, which I do too, but I have the Chiefs losing the one at SoFi, not tonight at home. But he was saying how, Justin Herbert, it's not even the fact that he hasn't made the playoffs yet, because that's kind of, everyone's kind of hanging that over his head right now. He hasn't even made the playoffs yet, which is true. And, there's an argument to be had about that. But it's the fact that all they had to do to make the playoffs last year really was beat the Texans. And Justin Herbert totally crapped the bed against the Texans and threw 2 interceptions. So, I mean, again, Justin Herbert's a good quarterback. I'm not trying to convince people he's not a great quarterback, because he absolutely is. But I'm taking Patrick Mahomes. That's just my opinion. And the Chiefs, they moved the ball at a historic rate last game against the Arizona Cardinals on offense. I mean, they were by far the best second down team in the league. I mean, they were so good on second down that they barely saw third down on Sunday against the Cardinals. And that was without even really trying in the fourth quarter. There were a lot of backups in the game in the fourth quarter, and it didn't matter. The Chiefs, they continued to move the ball. They were super efficient. Now, the Arizona Cardinals did have a lot of injuries, yes, but still, against an NFL team to put up 44 points and cruise the way the Chiefs did and make it look so easy, like, if I'm the Chargers, I'd be worried about that. And the Chargers, their defense struggled last year, and they were okay against the Raiders, but they still struggle to defend running backs, which is something I think we can expect to see from the Chiefs tonight, is a lot of plays with the running backs out of the backfield, testing the run early to see how the Chargers defend it, because the Chargers haven't defended running backs well. And I think the Chiefs will attack them early in that area. Also, J.C. Jackson will be playing tonight. He was questionable leading up to this game, and because he was coming off foot surgery. It looks like he will play tonight. If I were the Chiefs, I would also test him early and often, because I highly doubt he's at 100%. I can't move. He's moving the way that he wants to, coming off of injury. This is his first game back. This is his first game as a Charger too. And I would test him early to see if, well, it looks like I got Michael. Michael just threw his fist in the air, so I think it's working.
I can finally hear you. This is a buddy's headset right now. This isn't how you're hearing me. I don't know what is going on. I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But Josh, I'm ready to talk some Chiefs football. Let's get into this thing.
Awesome. I was like, oh, here he is. I'm about to add him. Oh, he disappeared again. And then I saw you like celebrate, and I was like, I think it works now for him. But
I couldn't hear you. And I tried. I even like went through and tried to listen to you on just normally, and it worked. And I was like, what is going on? But glad we fixed it. And hopefully the Chiefs don't have these type of problems tonight.
Yeah. So, I mean, before you jumped on, I was just kind of talking about how, I'm taking the Chiefs in this matchup. Obviously, I have the Chiefs splitting the season series with the Chargers, but I obviously have them winning at Arrowhead tonight. But I was kind of talking about how, the Chiefs offense, they move the ball at a historic rate against Arizona. And I know Arizona's beat up, but I mean, still against an NFL team to slaughter them like that, 44-21. And the Chargers defense wasn't great last year. Again, they struggle to defend running backs, and they did last week against the Raiders. So, and then J.C. Jackson, I was also talking about that right before you hopped on, how J.C. Jackson, he's playing tonight, but I would test him early and often, because I'm not sure he's going to be moving at 100%. So I would definitely go at him with our plethora of receivers.
For sure. And I think that, something that's interesting about this matchup that is different than any single Chiefs-Chargers matchup in the Mahomes era is, for the first time in a while, I feel like Mahomes can go to a plethora of receivers, and it's not, it's third and long, I need to find Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce. Now, obviously, Travis Kelce is a Charger killer. We saw what he did last year in SoFi in Los Angeles. But I think that this game is going to be a lot more of an offensive explosion that is diverse, and we're going to see a lot of different receivers get involved. But, like to your point, I think that they need to attack J.C. Jackson, can intercept a lot of different quarterbacks, but I also think that, they can attack him because he kind of reminds me of a Trayvon Diggs where, yeah, he might get those picks and he's not as bad as Trayvon, but he does get beat in coverage. And I think that that is an area in which the Chiefs should attack. But on the other side, I think that the Chargers are going to try to attack the backup for Trent McDuffie, who's not going to play in this game. So I think it's important that, our DBs hold up and their DBs don't.
So I want to go back to what you said at the very beginning about Travis Kelce and being a Charger killer. I wanted to bring up this stat, and it's from my editor, Matt Connor, over at Arrowhead Addict. He said Travis Kelce's last 3 games against the Chargers, 26 catches for 385 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I'm sure you've heard it before, but there's this narrative out there that Derwin James is this Travis Kelce stopper, and he's the best at defending Travis Kelce in the league. Now, I won't lie, he's put in good snaps against Travis Kelce, but this narrative that every time we play the Chargers, Derwin James is capable of taking Travis Kelce out of the game, it's simply not true, because he has been prolific against the Chargers in their last few games. I mean, and you saw what happened in their last matchup, which was Travis Kelce walking it off in overtime and burning their entire secondary.
Certainly. Now, I would be interested to see the snap count when Derwin is actually on the football field, because the guy very rarely plays. And that's why I think it's funny that Chargers fans are like, oh, Derwin's this lockdown safety against Travis. Well, if he is, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I haven't seen Derwin James enough against Travis Kelce to declare him a lockdown safety. And I think in that game that the Chiefs walked off in Los Angeles last year, James got hurt in the third quarter and didn't come back. So I still don't know if Derwin James is able to shut down Travis Kelce. If I'm a betting man, which I haven't put any bets down on this game, but I would bet that Travis Kelce is going to best Derwin James. And I just think that Mahomes is going to be under pressure a lot tonight, but he's going to be able to find a lot of different guys to throw to, and it's going to open the offense up. And I think that, we probably see an offensive explosion tonight from both teams, because the reality of the situation is that both these teams are offensive firepowers. They both have 2 of the best young quarterbacks in the game, great offensive weapons. And, I'm not really sure what to expect from the Chargers defense, but I think that whichever defense makes the bigger stop down the stretch is probably going to be the team that wins this game.
Well, I was talking to my friends last night, and one of them asked, hey, what are you feeling about this game? What's it going to come down to, in your opinion? Do you think the Chiefs defense is going to determine, how the game is won, or if the game is won, whatever? And I'm like, well, the Chiefs offense, I'm not worried about them at all. So I think it is I think it is on the defense. It's hard to explain, but it's the defense, I think their ceiling is so much higher this year. You look back at last year and how bad they were to start the season. I'll remind people, this defense gave up the most points in NFL history through the first 5 weeks of the season. So, I mean, they were bad. They were as bad as you can be. And even then, last year against the Chargers, and these 2 teams are different now, but that's kind of my point, is the Chiefs defense has improved. At least we think so, especially based off the first game against the Cardinals. But last year against the Chargers, the defense was god awful, and they still had a chance to win on the last possession of the game. So if the defense is if they're halfway decent tonight, I am not worried. I'm not.
And Justin Herbert's going to drop more points than Kyler Murray. And I think that just comes with the territory. Justin Herbert's a better quarterback than Kyler Murray, and I expect more points. But that doesn't mean that the Chiefs defense is going to fold. I think that they're going to hold their own. They are down a few guys, but the Chiefs have done a really good job of building depth along the defense. And so I think that they're going to have enough defensive people and personnel to get the job done. And, this is going to sound cliche, and I'll probably say it before every single week until I'm proven wrong. But I genuinely think Patrick Mahomes is going to have an FU game tonight. I mean, when he goes up against the Chargers, he's obviously trying to win these games because it's a divisional game at home, season opener. But I just think that, seeing even after week 1, he was ranked 8th according to PFF, which I don't even know. Josh, I think that me and you could do a better job without using any mathematics whatsoever of calculating who had a better QBR or quarterback rating through the first week of the season. But I just think that he is going to come out every single game this season and light it on fire. Because now, oh, you shut down his first option. That's cool. He's got someone else. You shut down his second option. He's going to find Juju or MVS. You shut down his third option. Now he's got running backs that can actually run the ball well. And I want to see something from Clyde in this game, because if he can start to get consistent carries and be good in games, that's going to make this offense even better. So I really think that, we might have a really good chance to win this game, even if we don't have Travis Kelce or Juju Smith-Schuster putting up 100-yard games.
Yeah, I mean, I think the depth on this Chiefs offense makes them even scarier than last year. I think we've both made our thoughts on that very clear. Even if Travis Kelce doesn't get 100 yards tonight or whatever, I think he's going to open things up for this offense. And I tweeted it out last night. I think this could be a big Marquez Valdes-Scantling game. I thought he quietly had a good game in week 1, and we didn't see a ton of like vertical plays from him, like, he was known for on the Packers. Maybe this is a game where you try to get him going downfield, or you test JC Jackson with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And I think this is a game he could absolutely do some damage. Skye Moore, we did not see a lot of him from week 1. That could be because the game plan, the Chiefs knew they had a good chance against the Cardinals and they didn't want to reveal too much. He did look fantastic on his one catch that he had, though, for 30 yards. Maybe Skye Moore emerges tonight and we see, what he's capable of. I wouldn't put that past this team. And you mentioned it with the running backs too. And I would like to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire have another good game, because my one, negative about him after that game, well, not a negative, because he didn't do anything negative in the game, but I guess my concern, for lack of a better term, is that, hey, Clyde, we've seen you have some games like this. Great. But when the Chiefs tend to play better competition, Clyde becomes less of a factor. And the Chargers are one of those teams, because even though the Chargers don't have a great defense, they have a lot of athleticism. And Clyde tends to have trouble against athletic defenses, the Chargers being one of them. I remember last year against the Chargers, he danced at the line of scrimmage a lot, and against faster defenses, Clyde's lack of speed really showed up, because he really struggled to get yards before contact. And I would definitely like to see him get going tonight, because if he can have, a game where he's very clearly contributing, that's a win for the Chiefs. And I expect the Chiefs to go 3 deep at running back tonight by getting Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco involved. I think we see all 3 of the running backs on the active roster play tonight and get, serious touches, because like I said, the Chargers, they've had trouble defending running backs. So I think the Chiefs will try to exploit that.
Well, it's going to have to be all hands on deck too, because I don't want to make this game into something that it's not and hype it up too much, but let's face it, this is probably going to be a very important game down the stretch, even though it is just week 2. But when you look at how good both these teams are, at least on paper, and where they should be at the end of the season, you can't lose these type of games. And if you do, you can only afford to lose so many, because, I mean, who knows? This game might come down to the division. Now, I know that's a long way away, but when you're going up against a divisional opponent, you got to win these games. And especially after the offseason that all of the other AFC West teams have, if you can come out and beat them after they did basically everything in their power to gear up to stop you, that's going to show the entire NFL that the Kansas City Chiefs are still the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, some people were saying after the Chiefs beat the Cardinals that, oh, it's Kyler, it's Cliff Kingsbury, the Cardinals are a joke and whatnot. But, I think that if the Chiefs can come out and beat the Chargers, not even by a lot, if they beat the Chargers, it's going to show the NFL that the Chiefs are still the Kings.
Yeah, it's a statement win. Like the Cardinals, hey, you won that one, but you should have won that one. You were favored by more than a touchdown in the first place. But, this would be a statement win, especially because the Chargers and Justin Herbert, they're one of the sexy teams that a lot of analysts are picking this year. And every year we get the annual, the Chargers are going to win the division. They have a chance to win the AFC West. Well, you could put that to bed fairly quickly, some of that talk, or at least you can, push it down for a while if you win tonight. Because if the Chargers win tonight, we're never going to hear the end of it. Like that, I'm telling you right now, that's just how it's going to be. And it's going to be an annoying storyline throughout the season until the division is finally clinched. Now, I do have one concern offensively tonight, and I think you know what I'm about to say, and that's the Chargers pass rush versus the Chiefs offensive line. The Chiefs offensive line, should be a strength. Yeah, after everything they've done to it the past couple years, you would think it'd be a strength, and it was last year. They gelled very late in the season and they got it going. But that said, Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, I mean, that's quite a tandem. And Orlando Brown, I think it's going to be a tough matchup for him. But what I'm really concerned about is Andrew Wiley on the other side. If they line up Mack or Bosa against Andrew Wiley, I'm afraid of some of the things that could happen. And I could definitely see the Chiefs combating that with maybe chipping with Noah Gray a lot. I think Noah Gray, he played a lot last week, and Jody Fortson as well. You could throw him in there, but I think Noah Gray is definitely a guy that the Chiefs will have lined up a lot at tight end tonight to maybe try to chip some of those Chargers pass rushers.
That's a really good point. I was very adamant about my displeasure with Orlando Brown Jr. after last week. I mean, this guy in the offseason was talking about how he is the best left tackle in the league and he wants to get paid as such. And he went out against the Cardinals, and to my knowledge, they don't have any star pass rushers really besides JJ Watt. And JJ Watt's like, what, 34? And he's not
playing.
And
he didn't even play in that
game. So the fact that he went out in that game and got cooked a couple times, and it was the guys with speed. And Orlando Brown Jr. has shown that he's not really good against guys with speed. Now, you bring up a good point with Andrew Wiley, but I am going to hold out some hope because I know that last year, going into that Raiders game in Vegas, our concerns were Andrew Wiley is going to get cooked by Crosby or one of the other pass rushers, and he held up really well against Crosby. Now, I know that Crosby and Bosa might have a little bit different level to their game, but I just think that it's not so much for me about Andrew Wiley. It's about Orlando Brown Jr. because Orlando Brown Jr. plays the bigger position. Left tackle is significantly more important. It's the blind side for the quarterback. And your left tackle wants to be paid $25, $27 million a year. So I think that I'm going to be watching Orlando Brown Jr. closely every single game. But you make a great point. I think that the Chiefs should chip with a running back or chip with a tight end. And maybe you have a guy like Jerick McKinnon set a block and then kind of just get behind the blocker and catch one of those dump-off passes and take it upfield like he did in that last game. I think that that's a way to kind of get your running backs involved, not only in the blocking game, but also in the screen game as well.
Absolutely. I will definitely be watching the bookends tonight of the offensive line. Not concerned about the interior at all. And the interior three of the Chiefs is probably one of the best in football. There's no doubt about it. The bookends, there's still some concern there, though. And it's unfortunate to say, after all the investment that they've made in the offensive line and the left and right tackle positions, right tackle, Lucas Niang's hurt right now. You can't do much about that. But Darian Kennard, we heard before the season, hey, this guy, he can compete for right tackle. Well, he's inactive, and he's probably going to be inactive for most games this year. So it's really kind of up to Andrew Wiley. So he's got to go out there and show out tonight. Like, the Chiefs have to get a good game from Andrew Wiley, especially if Orlando Brown's going to underperform, because he did last week against the Cardinals. There were a few plays he got beat pretty bad. But Orlando Brown, this was the story last year with him where he started off really slow and then settled in nicely.
Yeah, and I think that, we're going to be watching this game closely, and as long as Orlando Brown Jr. doesn't get beat consistently, he's probably going to lose tonight. That's just the moral of the story, and that's just how the offensive line works. It's a really thankless position because you can beat a guy 99 times, but if he beats you once and it goes poorly, then everybody remembers that aspect of the game and that moment of the game. But, something that you mentioned is that the offensive line wasn't really good in pass protection last week, but I thought they were phenomenal in the running game because there were times where Clyde would have some pretty big runs for Clyde. And I was just kind of looking at the replay, and the offensive line parted the sea and just gave Clyde basically a runway to go through. And I would love to see that in this game. The Chiefs should run the ball more. I think that you can't draw back on 95% of the snaps because it puts Mahomes at risk of injury, and it puts more pressure on Mahomes to win you the game, kind of playing that hero ball that we know he can play. But why not run the ball a little bit? Because with this offensive line, you're going to be able to run it more effectively. Give it to Jerick McKinnon, give it to Pacheco or Clyde, and let them get 5 yards on first down. And then you kind of have second, third, and fourth to get that first down or look down the field or, just continue to move the chains. But I think that running the ball is going to play more of a role in this game. and it should if the Chiefs want to win this game.
Yeah, and I don't even think the pass protection last week was bad necessarily. The Cardinals just blitzed a lot. But there were a couple plays where their ends got the best of our tackles, and it was mostly because of their speed that they have. Which, that's the thing with Orlando Brown, is he struggles against some speed rushers, but against power rushers he tends to do a little bit better because he doesn't have to move as much. And we know Orlando Brown, he's a big dude. It's hard to move so quick when you're so big. But that's really my only concern for the offense tonight, is the bookends of the offensive line. Everything else, like I am confident that it will go the Chiefs' way because, they have so much depth at receiver. They have depth at running back. Patrick Mahomes, after week 1, was the best quarterback in the league, and it wasn't even close. I expect him to play well again tonight in front of the home crowd. It's the first game at Arrowhead this season, and that's why I have the Chiefs winning. But I want to talk about the defense before we wrap up pregame, because I think that's the side of the ball that's probably, going to determine the game tonight, because they got to keep the Chargers points down. We know the Chiefs are going to score, but we got to keep the Chargers offense. We got to slow them down a little bit. And this defense has a high ceiling. Like I said, they got a lot of young guys, a lot of newcomers, but that also means there's probably going to be lumps along the way. Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense is going to be a big early challenge, especially with Trent McDuffie. Yeah, Trent McDuffie will not be playing in this game, and he was locked down in week 1. And now Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson, who were pushing for playing time as day 3 draft picks, now they're already having their role. The Chiefs are asking their roles to become even bigger very early in their careers. They're going to be tested tonight. And luckily, the Chargers won't be at full strength either. So it evens out a little bit because Keenan Allen will not be playing in this game. He pulled his hamstring last week against the Raiders. So that makes it a little bit easier. But the Chargers still got Mike Williams, who's a pretty good receiver and always seems to go off against the Chiefs. So that's going to be something to look out for. And the Chargers, they still have other options. And Austin Eckler is one of the best receiving running backs in the NFL. They're going to have to watch out for him tonight. And an aspect of the Chiefs defense I'm also really wanting to see tonight is the defensive line. They were one of the best in the league last week in pressures. I know Karlaftis had like 6 or 7 pressures. Chris Jones had about 6 or 7. I think Mike Ganna also added like another 7. So they definitely harassed Kyler Murray in week 1. Carlos Dunlap had a sack. Deshaun Wharton, L'Jarius Sneed blitzing. So I want to see the pass rush repeat that kind of performance again tonight. And I'm hoping, especially, George Karlaftis can maybe get his first sack as a Chief tonight.
And, for George, I'm not even quantifying his success as sacks. If he can get to the quarterback tonight like 4 or 5 times and just apply pressure, that's better than a sack for me. Because, yeah, a sack is nice against Justin Herbert, but I want him to feel the heat. And George is going to be able to get to the quarterback, and whether or not he finishes, that's going to be up to someone else. Or, like I said, I want to see him get to the quarterback. Sacks aren't the end all be all for me. I want to see you get pressure. But yeah, I want to see what our defensive line can do, because the Chargers have historically had a pretty bad offensive line. Rashawn Slater, they drafted him a couple years ago. He's been pretty good. But, I think that
Corey Linsley too.
Yeah. Which, by the way, people are saying that he's the best center in football, which
he ain't better than Creed.
I don't see why they say that at all. But I think that the Chiefs' defensive line can definitely attack the Chargers' O-line and get to Herbert, because if you get to Herbert, make him uncomfortable, it could be a long game for them. But I also think that an aspect that we haven't really talked about here, but I'll try to bring it up quickly as we wrap up. I think that the coaching mismatch between Andy Reid and Brandon Staley is going to be a problem, because Staley,
absolutely.
If you guys watched that last year's game against the Raiders, I think that better sums up Staley's coaching career than any other game. He trusts the analytics to a fault, and I think that Andy Reid is much more involved in the game, gets a sense of how football games are won and lost, and will make decisions on that accordingly. I think that Staley's going to get too caught up in the numbers. He's going to go for it a lot on 4th down and times where they probably should just take the points, and we'll see if that comes back to bite him. But I think that Andy Reid versus Staley is the matchup that I'm also very intrigued to watch.
Yeah, and I talked about that. I think last time we did a video too about how, or maybe it was with Hydra, but either way, Brandon Staley to me, again, and he's a bright young guy, but he's a defensive minded coach, and that Chargers defense was terrible last year. And it's not like their talent would, I think where they ranked didn't justify the talent that they had, because I think they had talent, yet they were still one of the worst defenses in the league. And Brandon Staley, like you said, he's over analytical sometimes. He likes to go for it on fourth down a lot. He tries to go for it, in the red zone a lot when maybe he should take the field goal, things of that nature. They even did it against us last year in the first game, and it shouldn't have worked. But the only reason it did, I think, I don't remember the play exactly, but I think it was like 4th and 9 or something like that. And they went for it.
And it was
and
Mike
they got
Williams.
Lucky. Yeah. Yeah, they got lucky because I think there was a flag on the play. They called like a phantom PI on DeAndre Baker or something like that, very late in the game, and that helped them win. But also, I want to ask you, are you concerned at all about this young secondary tonight without Trent McDuffie going up against the Chargers? Because I'm actually interested to see how they overcome the loss of Trent McDuffie. Obviously, people are pointing to Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams because, they're the next up on the depth chart. And, the Chiefs, they usually go pretty deep in their corner rotation. However, I wonder if maybe because their safeties are a lot deeper than they've usually been. And we know that Justin Reed and Juan Thornhill, those are very versatile guys. And then you still have Brian Cook. I wonder if maybe they play Brian Cook a little bit more and try to line up maybe Juan Thornhill or Justin Reed playing corner a little bit, especially Juan Thornhill, because we know he played corner a little bit at Virginia. So I wonder if they try to supplement the loss of Trent McDuffie by doing that and running some different 3 safety sets.
I'm partially worried about our secondary, but I'm not necessarily worried about the secondary more with the loss of Trent McDuffie. I just think that we have so much youth and inexperience that this is the biggest test of their career thus far. And with or without Trent McDuffie, it was going to be a test regardless. So yeah, it's going to hurt not having that first round draft pick, really stud cornerback that we got. But I think that we're going to have to see what we have in guys like Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson. And there's no better time to find out than tonight. I mean, like I said, this is one of the bigger games that we're going to play this season, but if they can stand to the task and do well in this game, I think that shows you a lot about what we have in that group, because if you can beat a divisional foe and not look like the straight up weakness, I'll take that. And I think that, kind of what I said last week, and that still holds true to this day. If the defense doesn't have a ton of missed tackles and they don't have a ton of blown assignments, given the fact that they are so young and inexperienced, I think that's a win. I really do. My expectations are less about, the amount of points on the board, but just how they function within the game, and are they blowing coverages and are they making tackles? And if they are and they aren't, I mean, it just kind of depends, but just don't be the reason that we lose the game.
Don't stick out like a sore thumb, do your job. I can agree with that. One more thing I wanted to kind of talk about before we wrap this up, and then I'll ask you your prediction. But if this is a close game, that's something that can come down to special teams. We know Harrison Butker's not playing tonight. The Chiefs signed Matt Amendola, who is a journeyman kicker. I forget what his stats are. He seems to be pretty solid on extra points and within the 40-yard line, but after you get, 40, 50 yards out, he tends to not be very good. And also, this is a big game tonight. If it comes down to special teams and that guy misses a couple kicks, that could, determine the game. And I'm a little bit worried about that because, when you're signing journeyman kickers, you never know how that's going to go. It's usually a toss up if they're good or they're bad. And kicking is like 90% mental. And I don't know. I just, something tells me that the kicking game could come up big tonight, or they could potentially lose the game. Honestly, I can't believe they didn't just give the kicking duties to Justin Reed. That would have been so much more cool. And honestly, I would have been comfortable with it. I don't know about this Matt Amendola guy.
I'll tell you what, if we need to kick like a 60-yarder for the win, we know Justin Reed has a boot. Now, it might not be accurate at all, but he will get it there. The question will be, does it go between the uprights? But yeah, I mean, you make a good point, and I would almost rather this new kicker struggle in the beginning, because at least then you know that, okay, we're going for it on every single fourth down, because we cannot afford to trust this kicker that just quite frankly doesn't have it. So if he is bad, which I mean, I don't know, but I remember last year they got that guy for the Pittsburgh game that I can't remember. Elliott, I want to not Elliott, but they brought in a kicker when Harrison Butker got COVID, and he was all right, but he did miss a kick. So
I remember that. Was
I
it
don't know his
Elliot
name.
Fry? I think it was
That's
Elliot
what it
Fry.
was. Yes, that's what it was.
He was bad.
Yeah, I mean, he made a couple kicks, but he also missed a couple kicks. So my only hope is that if this kicker is not good tonight, then they should go for it early and just kind of not trust him, because I would hate for him to be good all game and then they trust him to kick like a 45-yard field goal to send this game to overtime or something like that, and he shanks it wide left. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be bad from the start.
Yeah, well, that's my concern is that I remember I saw the number somewhere and I don't remember exactly what they were, but he is like money for an extra point range and, within kind of 40 yards. But after you get outside of like 40 yards, 50 yards, 60 yards, he's like really bad. But hopefully it doesn't come down to that. But we got the game here in a couple of minutes. We're wrapping up the pregame show. Before we go, though, Michael, what's your score prediction tonight? Who do you got winning?
Obviously, got to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to pick the Chiefs until they prove me wrong. And so my predictions are basically going to be the same every single week in terms of who's going to win the game. But my score is going to have this game being a barn burner. It's going to be a high scoring game. I got the Chiefs winning this game by a final score of 42-35. I think the Chiefs are going to put up their points, and the Chargers are also going to put up their points. And this just might be a game that comes down to the last minute drive from Patrick Mahomes. Now, I think that, kind of like we saw in the game last year, one team might go up by 2 touchdowns or 10 points, but the other team's going to come roaring back. It's going to be a close game. I think that if we blow out the Chargers, there's going to be more questions than if we win this game close. But I think it's going to be a close game, one that's going to have Chiefs fans a little bit anxious, but at the end of the day, I think that Pat's going to take us on a game-winning drive, and we're going to be 2-0 to start the season.
Interesting. I hope it's not what you said, because I want a nice stress-free Chiefs game tonight. I do have the Chiefs winning, though, only by 1 score. I'm going to go Chiefs 34-27. And I think, the Chargers, they'll never be out of it. They'll always be in it. But in the end, the Chiefs will do just enough to win the game. And yeah, that's my prediction. But that's all I got. We're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Michael, are you going to be available after the game? You want to do something after the game?
So depending on what you want to do. So guys, I'm in college, and as you can tell from this pregame show, and especially as I came in, I'm running around like crazy, and I don't have the time to do a 2-hour video where I'm editing it and whatnot. So I'll probably just go live on my channel. So Josh, you're more than welcome to join if you want to do that. Because I'm going to do maybe a 30-45 minute video, and I got to study for a finance test. So we're going to try to squeeze it in.
Nah, the finance test can wait. We got the Chiefs tonight.
Sorry, Kurt. But yeah.
No, yeah, sounds good. I'll definitely hit you up after. But for those of you watching, thank you for joining us in the pregame show. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find us. Make sure you check out Michael's work over at KC Sports Report on his YouTube channel and KC Sports Report Media, his website. And you can also follow his Twitter, which I also have linked in the description. But yeah, enjoy the game tonight and go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.